What is going on, everybody? Do you like drawing cards but don't like playing blue? Well, then do I have the deck for you. Let's go. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Roxora, and here we talk about all things Magic the Gathering. Today we're doing another Commander deck where I take a look at a deck list submission, talk about the Commander, the individual card choices, as well as the strategy overall. And at the end, I'll give it a rating out of 10. Today, I'm doing another one of my personal lists. This is a deck that I don't actually own in paper or anything like that, but I have played a little bit of it online, and I used to play it quite a bit, and I've come back to it and kind of revamped it with some new cards, or just like fiddle around with some of the card choices. So I figured I wanted to show this off. Also, as a mono green list, I feel like I show off a lot of my Is It a Jeskai decks a lot here, and show that I do tend to prefer those colors, but I did want to show like, hey, I do have a little bit of diversity in my deck choices, and I do really find this commander really enjoyable. Before we get into the actual commander and deck list and everything, if you enjoy the content, you find it valuable, it would really help me out if you like, comment, and considered subscribing. All of that would really help me out. All right, let's talk about the commander. All right, so our commander for this deck is Jolrael Mwonvuli Recluse. Mwonvuli. I don't know how to say that, but Jolrael is typically how I refer to this card. 1 and a green for a 1/2 legendary creature, human druid. It says whenever you draw your second card each turn, you make a 2/2 green cat token. So as you can see, rewarding us for drawing extra cards. And then it also has this really cool ability for 4 green. Until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. You can already see kind of like the goal of Jolrael, right, is to draw extra cards, make cats, and then activate Jolrael's ability. When you have a lot of cards in your hand, and all of a sudden your cats are very large, and you swing out with a huge a slew of or army of large cat creatures. So yeah, very excited to show off this deck because again, I think this is a really unique green card, right? It's not something that we typically associate with green colors, but it makes a lot of sense when you actually look at it. It still plays very similar to a green deck in that you're making a lot of creatures, you make a lot of mana and all that, those kinds of things, but you also get to draw a bunch of cards. It's a lot of fun. All right, let's get into this deck list. All right, so here we have the deck list. A couple of notes before we actually talk about the cards and stuff like that. This is a more casual deck. Again, there's no combos here. There's no insane things. We're really just trying to again make do the Jolrael thing, make cats and beat down. That being said, the deck is $400, which again is I don't think of that as a crazy amount. I know some people might be like, $400 for a deck, that's crazy. There are a lot of cards in here that are completely unnecessary. They're really good. They're cards that I don't own in paper and probably don't want to buy in paper. Again, if you have a group that is proxy friendly, or if you can have a group that is proxy friendly, I would highly encourage that and just have a good time. Let's not make this about who has the most money and all those things. Economy's rough, magic's expensive. Anyways. And I will also kind of note in this deck in this portion where there are cards where it's like this card is really expensive. If you don't own it or you don't want to buy it, don't worry about it. Run anything else that you think works for the deck. So yeah, so essentially what we have here is we have a little bit of a green kind of ramp, go wide, right strategy, right? So we've got a bunch of elves to help us out in the early turns, so like Elvish Mystic, Finhorn Elves, the lower elves, as our mana dorks. And then we have a bunch of nice good cards here. So like Wall of Blossoms, not the best card in terms of using Jolrael's effect, but we really want to play as many of these effects that draw extra cards. Wall of Blossoms being a creature that will work with some of the other cards in our deck will be quite nice. what was I gonna say? Yeah. So the big thing also to remember is that Jolrael only cares about drawing your second card. If you draw any like 3 cards in a turn, it doesn't really matter. This also does work during your opponent's turn. So we have a couple of effects that can draw at instant speed, and those are pretty valuable. But yeah, typically you're not really going to be making more than 1 cat a turn unless you have any kind of token doubler, which we'll get into. Speaking of drawing extra cards, Magus of the Library is a new inclusion. It's a nice card. It's cheaper than Library of Alexandria, and it also just makes some mana, right? It's a mana dork. It's almost like better than Library if you can accelerate, if you use it to accelerate, right? Circle of Dreams Druid is fantastic. A really cool one here is Feline Sovereign, which just makes your cats bigger. And also gives you a little bit of artifact and enchantment destruction, which is nice. This is another new card that I added. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, each of that player's opponents may draw a card. This is a card that like might seem weird, but in a 4-player game, no one's really gonna hate this card. But it's gonna let you make cats during your opponent's turn, right? So you go Jolrael into this, another player casts a non-creature spell. Yes, 2 of your opponents will draw an extra card, but you will also get to draw 2 cards and make a cat, and that's really good. Anything to keep the cards flowing and stacked up in your hand is nice. Remember, Jolrael's ability is even better when you have a bunch of cards in your hand. So someone goes off with a bunch of spells, you make a bunch of cats, and all of a sudden you have 12 something cards in your hand, and you can just nuke somebody with Jolrael's ability. Lenore Visionary is another great card. There's a lot of classic staples, right? Visionary, Reclamation Sage, Runic Armasaur. Again, another thing giving you cards. Everyone should know what Tireless Tracker does, right? These are all great. Beast Whisper, of course. Okame Adversary is a card that a lot of people are familiar with in the, kind of the high-powered or CEDH space. It's just a nice value card, and it's probably a card that a lot of people don't put in their decks. But yeah, it's just really good. It's 2/3 Death Touch, and when it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So a lot of people aren't going to really want to block this. They're kind of just going to be like, okay, cool, you can draw an extra card, and this is a really great way to again continue making cats. Toski is another great one. Again, just drawing even more cards. Defiler of Vigor is another new one. Basically, reducing the cost of your green spells by a little bit, but also this last ability of putting counters on your stuff anytime you cast a green permanent spell. As you can see, we've got a bunch, 25 creatures here. We've got a couple enchantments that will be green, and I think there's even like a party tree or the Great Henge, and I think that's the only green artifact that we can run, obviously. Yeah, so I haven't actually tested this card, but obviously it's just a good card. It's gonna be really nice. Keeper of the Fables, a cat, notably a cat. There's some kind of, we're not doing cat tribal, but like there are some cards that do happen to be cats and do work with them, right? Like the Feline Sovereign. And then also Orin Frostfang. So both of these again rewarding you for going wide, hanging your opponent and such, and drawing extra cards off of that. Psychosis Squalor is a great way to win the game when you can't really attack, right? So each opponent loses life whenever you draw a card. It also just being a large creature. Yeah. And then we've got some cyclers here. We've got a bunch of things with cycling. Obviously, they work really, really well when you are making extra tokens with Jolrael, but also gaining an additional effect after that, aside from that, right? So the Monitor and the Tusker giving you a land card as well when you do that is just a great amount of value, right? This is a card, a land, and a token all in one card, which is really, really nice. Speaking of drawing lots of cards, Regal Force is a house. Yeah. And Raise Forwards here as kind of a budget version of why am I blanking on the card? Craterhoof Behemoth. Right, there's no Craterhoof Behemoth in here. If you own Craterhoof, that would be another great addition. But really don't need Crater Hoof most of the time, and this is just like a budget replacement for it. So this is will be nice, right? When you can do this, and then you can activate Jolrael, and if you have that much mana, I guess, which you can, which you can certainly do, right? If you have something like a beast, not a beast whisper, a Circle of Dream Druid, right? Going, you have a bunch of creatures, you play this, you activate it. There's definitely things that you can do to go a little nuts. So yeah, so you see a lot of our creatures are either mana dorks, creatures that draws cards, or some kind of powerful finisher effect. It's generally going to be one of those three things. Oh, I skipped over Garrick here. Garrick is just a really powerful card. Making a beast every turn is one thing, but then just this -3. So a lot of times people kind of just like play Garrick as this second effect, right? Just immediately sacrifice it to draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. It's not always as good in our deck. Again, unless we have something like a Regal Force or something on the battlefield. A lot of our creatures are going to be small. We're going to have like a cat, but it's still really good. And you can also, again, like take this up, make a beast, and then next turn -3 if you're successful in defending it. So yeah. All right, so now for our sorceries here, we've got a couple of these kind of explore effects, right? Draw a card, and then some ramp, right? Rampant growth. Beneath the Sands Knights, it's both a ramp and a cycler. We've got the classic ramp spells. Scale the Heights is a nice card. Can gain you some life. Again, it's like a 3-mana explorer basically, but that does a couple of extra stuff. Harmonize, just drawing 3 cards, just like a really random green effect that draws cards. I never really understand why this card is here in green, but anyways. Sermonic Revelation is really, really nice. It's basically another copy of Regal Force, it's a sorcery, so it's a little harder. Riskard's Expertise can be a house sometimes, right? Just drawing a bunch of cards and then casting a spell for free. And then Azuri's Predation here is just a really, really, really powerful card. Your opponents have a bunch of small creatures, and then you cast this and you just completely wipe the board of your opponent's creatures while making a bunch of beasts. So yeah, very, very powerful card if you can get this off. For instance, we have obviously a lot of the important interaction spells, Heroic Intervention being the biggest one. This card is just really, really powerful. You want this in pretty much, I don't want to say all your green decks, but definitely most of the green decks in existence will do it. There's also Beast Within, right? Just a nice interaction spell. And then we've got some nice cyclers, right? Druid's Deliverance, Lull being a fog effect and a cycler. And then we've got some, nice disruptive effects. Poison the Blade, offering to trade and draw a card, making a right. So you could like attack with one of your cats. They block. You give a cat Death Touch and draw a card. Make another cat, right, and then your cat trades with whatever blocked it. Verdant Rebirth is a great way to save a creature, right? So if someone tries to kill Jolrael, you play this, you draw a card, and if that was your second card, right? If it was during an opponent's turn, if it was during your turn or whatever, right? You get a cat to go along with it. Wilt is another, kind of Dissenter's Deliverance effect, 2 mana. Barrier's Breach is kind of the same. And then Rending Vines here, a little expensive and sometimes won't always work, right? If there's like a really, really, really expensive artifact, it might not do it, but getting to destroy an artifact and draw a card is a little bit better than something like Wilt, where you kind of have to choose, okay, do I really want to kill their artifact or do I want to draw a card? And then I love Return of the Wildspeaker here. It's both a draw spell and a pump spell. So like there are some games where you're just like, cool, I'm gonna cast this and I'm gonna be face, but then other times just like, cool, like I have a chef out monitor or whatever on the battlefield, and they'll draw a bunch of cards. And then the artifacts here is where things get kind of I don't want to say boring, but right, there's not a lot of ramp here. We have Soul Ring, we have Thought Vessel, and Mindstone, right? These are the kind of like the obvious effects of like these cards. Soul Ring is a must, right? Obviously, but then Thought Vessel and Mindstone are just good to draw extra cards. But really, the other things like Bag of Holding, Endless Atlas, and Lifecrafter's Bestiary, and all these things are just there to draw extra cards, right? So like Bag of Holding, really nice to just again continuously loot with Jolrael while also keeping or stockpiling the cards you discard to get back later. Um, the Alhammar's Archive is here. Again, it says if you draw a card, except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead, right? So you play something like, again, your Wall of Blossoms or whatever, and you draw 2 cards instead of one. That's pretty nice. It also works well if you were to cycle a card during your opponent's turn, right? So if you cycle a card during your opponent's turn, you draw 2 cards, so you instantly get the Jolrael effect. Again, a lot of times this deck struggles to get more than 1 cat per turn cycle. Alhammar's Archive is a good one. It's a little clunky, right? It's 5 mana, but I think it's still really good for that effect. If the game is going long and you can make multiple cats per turn cycle, that's going to be really, really good. So here are the 2 cards that it's like they're really, really, really expensive. They are very powerful, but I wouldn't fault you if you're like, I don't want to buy these. My play group or my store or whatever doesn't allow proxies. I'm gonna cut these from the deck, right? So Immortal Sun, $25. Really, really powerful effect, right? Shuts off planeswalkers, draws you an additional card, reduces the cost of your spells, and pumps your team. Like, it does so much. It is 6 mana, but it does so much, and it pretty much just guarantees you don't have to do any other work, right? You play the Immortal Sun, you don't have to do any other work during your turn to make a cat, right? You draw your card for the turn, or sorry, you draw off of Immortal Sun, you draw off of your card for the turn, and boom, you make a cat. So Immortal Sun does so much work there, and it also, again, now you can just like not worry about having to make cats. You can start pumping your team. You can play other creatures, and like you can do stuff to, again, draw cards during your opponent's turn to make more cats. So Immortal Sun does a lot. That draw at the beginning of your upkeep, or sorry, at the beginning of your draw step, I should say. Oh, never mind. The upkeep, draw step, doesn't matter. Giving you an additional card every turn without having to pay more mana into it is such a strong effect for this deck. Party Tree, aka the Great Henge, right? This is, I think, the cheapest version of the card. I don't know exactly what I think the other ones like are something like, $60-$70. I don't know. This card's ridiculously expensive, and for a really good reason. Everyone's running this card in these kinds of green decks. Just getting to play this card for cheap and then get 2 mana and 2 life every turn and get multiple cards and put counters on yourself. It just does so much work. Right. But again, these cards are not necessary. You can cut other things for them. You can, just more draw effects, or more ramp or whatever, right? And these aren't 100% necessary. They aren't core to the deck in any way, as opposed to things like Felidar Sovereign or Beast Whisperer. These cards are, like, I would argue, are much more important to have around, and they're just cheaper, right? Even like Tireless Tracker is just like a fine card, right? This is like good where you can like make a bunch of clues, right? And then you can use these to, again, make multiple cats per turn cycle. Whereas these are just so much money that, like, I can understand not wanting to get these, because you don't get as much bang for your buck. Let's put it that way. And there'll be a couple of cards here as well, which I'll mention. Kenra's Transformation is just a really powerful enchantment. You get to get rid of an opponent's commander, basically, or just a really, really large creature. And it draws you a card. So it's again, both kind of like Rending Vines, where it's both disruption and it synergizes with Jolrael to make cats. So very, very nice. Speaking of Immortal Sun drawing extra cards, Sylvan Library is another expensive card. It is very, very powerful in Commander. It's basically just drawing 3 cards a turn within reason. But again, this is another one of those cards where it's like, you don't need this card. Again, if you have it, great. If you don't, don't worry about it. Run any other, effect that draws extra cards or whatever you think the deck needs. On the other hand, Beastmaster Ascension is just $4 or $4.50 or something like that, and this is really powerful, where you just make a bunch of creatures, you attack, you put a bunch of quest counters on this, and all of a sudden your stuff is huge. Love this card, so much fun to use, and yeah, and it's not incredibly. It's a 3 mana card as well. It's not an incredibly expensive enchantment, so yeah. Growing Rights of Itlabog is a tough one here, because it gives you a Gaia's Cradle on the back, and that is really, really good. It also digs you for creatures. So it is $21, or 21 to 30. I don't know what this range is. Something like, yeah, $20 ish. And oh, this for the foil. Okay. Something like $20. And yeah, I don't want to tell people like, oh, you need this card, but this card's really good. And this deck does need a lot of mana. And yeah, the games where I like play this, flip it, it's really good. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Again, you don't need it. You can run other stuff. Note that there is no Gaia's Cradle. There is no Gaia's Cradle in this deck. Right? You could run Gaia's Cradle again if you have a Gaia's Cradle. I don't buy a Gaia's Cradle. Don't buy this if it's too much money. I'm just saying, but this card's really good. Guardian Project, though, is only $10 and basically draws you an extra card every time you play a creature. It's really good. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this card. It's really good. Again, it is 4 mana, so it's not. It is again a little slow, but it draws extra cards. It's really good. And then, of course, the big ones. Parallel Lives and Doubling Season. These cards are super, super expensive. I hate how expensive these cards are. I would love to mess around with Doubling Season and like Planeswalkers or like counters or whatever. But yeah, I'm not paying $85 for this card. I'm also not paying $50 for Parallel Lives. These cards are here. Again, proxy these cards if you can. If not, if you don't own these cards, don't worry about it. These cards aren't necessary. It is really good with Jolrael. Again, making extra cats is very, very strong, especially if you're making them multiple instances of the cats per turn cycle, right? You make a cat during your turn, you make 2 cats, you make a cat during your opponent's turn, you make 2 more cats. All of a sudden, just in 1 turn cycle, you've gone from 0 to 4 cats. Very, very strong. Nothing too crazy in the land base here. The land base is actually really standard. Blasted Landscape, 2 mana cycler. Just basically you're running the cycling lands. Right, the karst here. There's also this new Hunter Maze, which is nice. Tranquil Thicket, and then some of the good ones here are War Room, paying 1 life to draw an extra card for just 3 mana. Is a very powerful effect. This card's not too expensive. I would probably run this card if you can get it. And then the other ones like Gyro Reach, Sanitarium, and Mikagoro are very, very cheap. So, and these just, again, are a free enabler for Jolrael. So I would go ahead and put these in the deck if you can. Cool. I think we went through that pretty well, right? Not too bad. Short and sweet. Again, deck is pretty straightforward. You play Jolrael, you draw extra cards, you make cats, and keep in mind this is instant speed and I love playing this. I do also play this in Historic Brawl on Arena, and people just don't read Jolrael. I attack with a bunch of 2/2 cats, and they're like, yeah, they're fine. They're just 2/2s. I'll take it. And you're like, cool, I'm gonna activate this, and they're all like 7/7 creatures, take 21, plus damage, you're dead. So I love just surprising people with that. Again, a lot of people will not pay attention to Jolrael because they're like, oh, it's a 1/2, it's not gonna do anything. You're just making cats, and then all of a sudden your stuff's huge and you're a beaten face. So it's very, very cool to do that. And I just love how this deck works, right? It's a very unique commander for green. Just trying to draw extra cards. I think drawing cards is one of the most fun things you can do with Magic. I think a lot of people would agree with that. So yeah. So that's the deck. What would I give the deck out of 10? I think this deck is near perfect. Again, I don't really like the price of things like Parallelized Doubling Season and Party Tree. I would probably pay for Immortal Sun if I were to build this deck in paper. I think Immortal Sun is worth it. If you were to ask me like what card of like what of all these expensive cards would I prioritize getting, and I would probably say the Immortal Sun. I think Party Tree you can do without. Parallel Lives and Doubling Season you can do without, but I think Immortal Sun is, again, really, really, really good. I'm always happy when I draw that card. So yeah, I'd probably give this like an 8, balancing both like the power level, the uniqueness of the deck, but also the cost and kind of all those things. So yeah, that's Jolrael. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this very, very unique deck. I think I don't know. Let me know if you guys have ever seen a deck built around Jolrael before. Do you guys like this? Because I sure do. I think this is one of my favorite green cards. Yeah. I think I have a copy of like Jolrael in my collection, like it just lying around somewhere, and I'm like always look at it and go like, man, I really want to build this, you know. So yeah. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, if you did, remember leave a like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff really helps me out. And yeah, let me know. Like if you guys have decklist submissions. Again, all the submissions are always open. But also let me know if you guys want me to like build a deck around a commander or something like that or anything like that. I'm always down to like do that. Professor Amateur also brought up the idea of bringing back the commander deck building challenge, where we build a commander deck in like half an hour frantically. So let me know if you guys want to do something like that again. That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, again, thanks you guys for watching. Hope you guys are looking forward to more content, and I'll see you guys for the next video.